This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. I am a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset. This podcast will help and support you with new ideas about business. These are my thoughts, ideas, and comments. So today we're talking to RJ Grimshaw about his career in finance and technology and in coaching and speaking. Hello, RJ. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you today?
I'm very well, very well. How is coronavirus affecting you and your business?
Yeah, the good news is that from a family perspective, my family, we're all doing well. In the grand scheme of things, it's been quite a cultural change. I have two boys that they're young men, matter of fact, and I've been able to spend a lot of time with them over the last 45 days due to the fact that we're all on, self stay at home and things of that nature. From a business perspective, it's has affected us tremendously because UniFi, my current role is I'm the CEO president for UniFi Equipment Finance. And what we do, Mark, is we finance equipment for business owners. Right. So due to the fact that when this first originally started, back in February, let's say, we saw a dramatic decline in new credit applications and businesses that were buying equipment to the tune of probably 50% that our business was immediately turned off. Yeah. So we were out in front of it. We made adjustments, and then there's a new program that we're supporting business customers called the PPP, which is the Payroll Protection Program. And a lot of businesses in the States have taken advantage of that. So we actually have pivoted 50% of our resources to support that initiative, while the other 30% focuses on deferment for our current customers. We have approximately 6,000 customers. And so far to date, close to 30% of those customers have asked for help in regards to deferring payments or some type of payment relief over the next 90 days. Right. But we're starting to see a little bit of business being generated in terms of businesses that were in a good spot with strong balance sheets and a good cash position. They're taking advantages of heavily discounted new equipment or used equipment. So we are starting to see a little bit of uptick in regard.
Were they in your pipeline, or were they actually new to your business?
Yeah, they're net new, net new to the business. We made a change 60 days ago, 45 days ago, that our mindset, our sales team's mindset, wasn't to be calling on our customers from a sales perspective. It was strictly just a relationship perspective. How are you doing? Anything we can do for you? Is everybody okay? Do you need any support, deferment? And then we also work with equipment resellers who sell the equipment. So we were trying to brainstorm and bring best practices to them in terms of enticing their customer bases or their customers to make that purchasing decision in terms of what we call a 90-day deferment. So they could acquire the equipment today and not have a payment for 90 days or 6 months. So when we come out of this and the piece of equipment is either generating revenue and or making the company more efficient, they could take advantage of the discounted prices for the new equipment. But all in all, every business across, here in the States has been affected one way or the other. Yeah. The businesses who have been successful have pivoted. And what I mean by that is they're allowed to pivot. So we do a lot of embroidery machines and garment machines and things of that nature. Yep. The equipment that goes in those machines or into those businesses, and a lot of those companies have pivoted to now they're making masks. And it started with for other businesses. Now they're starting to make them with logos and upgrade things of that nature. So a lot of businesses have pivoted. We do some restaurant equipment as well. And those businesses have pivoted towards, delivery The businesses that have been affected the most is our hospitality, our hotels, where no one is traveling today. And we do fitness equipment that goes inside of those hotels. So think about a Marriott that has a fitness or a gym inside of the Marriott. We look at credit, you would think it is a great credit, but circumstances took place that they had no control over. And the challenge for that, Mark, is we're not sure what the future is going to look like. We're not sure if there will be a gym in a Marriott any longer. And if there is, I'm sure there will be, but what it look like in terms of disinfection and things of that nature. So there's a lot of uncertainty, just like there is across the world. We're rolling out in phases. Michigan, where I reside and our company is based, probably one of the most strictest states in terms of the bans that they've put on people in terms of stay at home, shelter in place, offices being closed. And we're not opening our office until June 1st. So we've been working, 30% are still in the office, but with social distancing. And then the other 70, like myself, are working remotely. So, and we're saying that we probably won't go back to 50% even until June 1st. And then we'll do phases until we can redesign the office and re-engineer the office to ensure that we have social distancing and all the proper protocols to keep our team members safe.
Initially, when this first started, I was hoping that we would come back with a bounce back globally from the economy. But the more this has developed, I personally think there's going to be a new normal, and a lot of people that are working from home at the moment will either request to stay working from home, or they'll be sort of allowed as normal, but they'll be encouraged to stay at home. And I think offices will change, and social distancing might be until the vaccine is found. So I really think we're going to be in a new normal situation for a lot of business. And you mentioned about hospitality. So London is renowned for hotels and tourism and art and restaurants and pubs and bars, and they've just completely shut down in the UK. There's just no business for them at all. So I really think you're right in that there will be a new normal for all of us.
It will be, and we have many conversations of what that will look like. And to your point, Mark, I think as this drags on longer and longer, in the beginning, it's a roller coaster, right? In the beginning, you think, okay, we'll go through this a couple of weeks, we'll come back to normal, and then it's a month, and then it's 2 months, and then people start becoming accustomed to working from home and things of that nature. And even with 70% of our staff working remotely, we're more efficient and proficient than we ever have been in terms of the business. Which there's a lot to be said. So quality of life, my director of credit and portfolio management, he has a hour commute both ways. So he just up quality of life 10 hours in his life to work from home. And he is as productive, he's as productive there than he is losing those 10 hours. Now the challenge with that, and this is where I'm trying to research and learn as a leader, is how do you create culture through remote, through without being together? Because we were very big on culture. We celebrated birthdays every month. We celebrated anniversaries. We did happy hours at the pub, to celebrate things. We did lunches. We had lunches brought in. So we were almost to a point, we were almost family with each other. And how do you do that? I did for the first time Friday evening. I did a happy hour Zoom call with a couple of my colleagues. Catch up because we haven't seen each other. Now what happens is all of a sudden it becomes work talk, for 2 hours. And my wife joined me, and she was there for the first half an hour. She said, well, you guys are just talking about work, so I'm going to go, go do a couple things around the house. So I think the new norm, I actually think that the new norm could make our world a better place. I really do, on several fronts. Now, several thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives have been affected by this.
Yeah.
Business owners here in the States, had no control. And in the beginning, I would get really frustrated because people would say to me, well, the business owner should have planned. The business owner should have been, more prepared for this. And when people would say that to me, I would say, there's no college, there's no business class, there's no business book that's written, how do you prepare for a pandemic? Yeah. And even with our perspective, when we started planning in February of our disaster recovery plan. So we pulled out our disaster recovery plan and started working through this. And I'll never forget that meeting for the rest of my life. I'll never forget that because it was surreal. And we're sitting in our boardroom and we're working through these scenarios. And our project manager, she comes in the office, and this is the first that you started talking about. She goes, should we have social distancing? And we all chuckled like, ha, 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 ha. Well, that's the way it's going to be now and the way it is now. And she was talking like that in February. Yeah. And we went through every scenario. What happens if we can't come into work? What happens, if every single scenario. Now, the scenario we didn't think through was, what happens if the government shuts down all the other businesses and our customers are affected that can't make payments?
Yeah.
Coming from a family of entrepreneurs, I was very adamant that we needed to be out in front of this. And when our customers started calling us for deferment, we needed to show a lot of empathy, sympathy, understanding, have a quick and easy process to take care of their needs. Because in the time of uncertain, they needed to be certain that we were there and we were picking up the phone and we were answering them, answering questions and saying, yes, we're going to do a 90-day deferment for you, no payments. And then on that fourth month, it'll just resume. We're just going to tack your other payments to the end. And we made it without friction. Mark, that first couple of weeks, we had people crying. We had people, just extremely thankful the way that we handled it, because we're a smaller organization. And that's what we pride ourselves on, picking up that phone and having personal relationships with people. And, it just sets us apart because these people were in a situation that they had zero control over, no control over at all.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's in investments, and we were talking about I was just having a chat with him about his strategy and how he could pivot and try and think about different ways to attract new customers. And the most sense that he said was, at the moment, as an investor for other businesses, we are just saying, sit tight. If you've got the cash reserves, sit tight. He gave solid, good advice to not do anything. And I did say to him, a lot of companies, if you give good advice in a recession or in this time, they will stay with you because they saw that you were empathetic, you understood, and you were giving them sound advice. And it sounds like the same happened with you, because you gave good advice, you gave good support to people, and I'm assuming that when we come out of this, your relationship with them will be stronger than it was before.
I firmly believe so. And I personally over communicated to our customer base through video. I was leveraging video right away, where I knew that was going to be the new normal. And emails, and not over, how many emails did we all receive in the beginning from every company that you're ever on their email distribution list? Be safe, wash your hands, right? It was almost like a marketing ploy. Hey, email them. Where any of our communications didn't bring up anything like that. It was initially, this is how we're going to handle it. This is how we're going to help you. And then as the SBA, the Small Business Administration here in the United States, started rolling through programs to roll out, we wanted to ensure that information got out to our customer base right away.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, Mark, is that we did have a couple, and I put my email, my phone number, my mobile phone number that could contact me directly if they had any questions. it was interesting. In the beginning, there was a handful, small percentage of a backlash of, oh, you're just the bank. You want to give us more money to put us in a worse position. And because there was just, people were under so much stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I would reach out to those folks and apologize and say to them, that was not my intent. That is not what the reason why we sent this email. Matter of fact, we're a small company as well. We're 18 employees. We're not a big bank. We're 18 families relying on this business to support our families.
Yeah.
So we take value in just trying to help you because you're a small business owner, and that's what drives us. That's why we've been in business since 1978.
Right.
Of helping small businesses. But you could just see the degree of stress.
Yeah.
And the degree of uncertainty, which still is in place. Let's not kid ourselves that it's gone. But our whole team rallied around that. And, even with this PPP, our people in our business that we pivoted to help with that, they've never done it, or it was new to all of us.
Yeah.
And rallied, and the satisfaction came from, we knew we were helping companies survive during these uncertain times and hopefully be able to make it out of it.
Yeah.
And time will tell. We're living in, we're all living in times that we never ever expected, and there's no right or wrong. But I ventured out this weekend for Mother's Day. I ventured out Saturday and Sunday to run and get my wife coffee in the morning, and it's the first time that I've ventured out, and at the coffee shop through the drive-through, you could just see people being nicer and friendly to each other.
Well, I hope so. I hope.
Where you're here in the States, our pace is so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I almost sense where you're starting to see the pace slow down a little bit, and people are realizing, why were we running so fast? Why were we? I've eaten more dinners with my family over the last 45 days than I probably did the last 15 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things we've done in my family is that we'll eat together every evening, and most lunchtimes, unless I've got calls and things at lunchtime. But and it's incredible the time you actually get with them that was completely missed by either working late or commuting or whatever. So it's quite nice, actually. It's actually quite nice to spend some time with them as well.
And part of me, this almost sounds a little bit strange, but part of me, when I know we're getting close to coming out of this, which we need to for the entire country, I'm already starting to miss that a little bit, because I know that my two young men are going to be gone. I'm not going to have that. Here's something else. I talk to my mom now every single day, video call with my brothers or her every single day, every day. Yeah. I never did before. So there's a lot of, the monetary piece of it is going to hurt a lot of businesses, but the human piece of it, I think it's made people better people. And
I really genuinely hope that what doesn't happen is we go back even in a staggered return and people return to their old ways. I hope you're right. And I will definitely try to, as you say, do things a little bit slower, think about things a little bit more mindfully, and spend a bit more time with loved ones, and prioritize those things rather than this hectic lifestyle that we were all living 3 months ago.
It came to a quick halt, and I was talking to our chief risk officer at the bank on Friday about the new normal. And when we worked through the Great Recession in 08, 09, that was a very slow process in terms of 08, started maybe in 07, 08, 09, until we started coming out of it, where this was immediate. And in the beginning, some people didn't want to believe it. This isn't going to happen. And I would believe that's probably was the same in London.
Yeah.
But here people didn't want to believe it. But I was completely opposite. And what I learned when I was at EverBank, I learned from Jim McGrain, bless his soul. He was our CEO president at EverBank. And I learned from Jim during that time. He was very quick to move, to make the adjustments, to right size the business, and not wait. And he had to make very difficult decisions. And we did I was part of the leadership team, and I had to be part of that, those hard decisions. But what he taught me was, don't drag it out, make the difficult decisions, take care of the people the right way, and then come out the other side of it, you can hire them back and bring them back. But if you keep them during this, we might not make it through. So that's where I was planning with my leadership team right away. Who would we might put out furlough? Who could we pivot? And then when when I caught wind of the PPP program, I immediately went to the bank, my boss, the bank president, and said, I have resources here that we can leverage to be able to help the bank support this program, because we wrote within 2 weeks more loans than the bank writes in a year.
Wow.
And process those. So we needed resources. And my team, I felt it was my opportunity and responsibility to try and keep everyone employed that I possibly could. And we kept 100% of our team employed.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, we did the right thing by supporting these business owners. But again, I'm not sure what the new normal is going to look like.
No, I don't think any of us are. So you mentioned about EverBank, and we'll get on to EverBank. Sure. But I want to go back to your origin story. So you did a business degree at the State University of New York, Empire State College. So do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I actually ended up going back to school. I got married at a very young age. I'm still married to my bride. It'll be 30 years this August.
Oh, congratulations.
I was married. Thank you. I was married at the age of 21, and I actually went into the United States Air Force after. I just realized that college maybe wasn't for me. And I back then I said I wanted to start my life, and I felt that was, you know, the way to start it, by going in the Air Force, and probably it was the best thing that ever happened for me, because it provided me the tools in terms around discipline and leadership, and really set a strong foundation. So when I came out of the military, the Air Force, I was actually fortunate enough, as I mentioned earlier, my dad was a very successful business owner, and he actually set my brother and I up in our first business at the age of 23.
Okay.
Which was a bar, restaurant, motel. And my dad was my mentor. He was, you know, my hero. I learned from him everything in terms of being a father, which is the most important thing. And then secondly, a husband, father, a business person, and then a baseball coach. He was a little league baseball coach. Mm-hmm. And to this day, back in our hometown, they give away every year for their little league the Gene Grimshaw Leadership Award, which speaks volume again about who he was as a person. So we were in the bar business, and long story short, the Cliff Notes version is that, like with any partnership, sometimes there's challenges, and you know, there's always more challenges maybe sometimes when you're dealing with family members in a business. So I actually sold my portion of the business to my brother Eric, who ended up owning the business for 20 years. He's the brother that lives in Las Vegas now and had a successful run. But that put me in a spot where I went into corporate America. And when I went into corporate America, I quickly realized that I needed to finish my degree. I needed to have that degree to be able to get to where I wanted to get to. So I went to Empire, which is a great, more of an adult learning type of school, where you go, you know, every third weekend and spend the weekend there, and there's like-minded people in terms of they're going to school there with you to finish your degree. Yeah. So I went back there, I finished my degree, and at that time I was working at Key Equipment Finance, which really gave me the foundation for the industry that I'm in today. I was there for 8 years, worked my way up through the corporate ladder, and ultimately, I always knew that I wanted to be a leader of some sort of manager, sales manager, CEO, some type of role of that. So I was just a life learner in regards to learning. I love business. I still love business, working with business owners. So actually moved to Houston for Keith for that opportunity to become director of sales for my first real true director type position. It was $100 million business, but it was short lived because after I moved to Houston, my CEO, Adam Warner, who's still at Keys, one of my mentors, ultimately made a decision to consolidate platforms. Like after any acquisitions, right? You look at, the efficiencies that you can gain and leverage. So they wanted to consolidate that platform into Colorado. And that would have been our third move with my boys, and they were much younger at that time. And my wife just asked me that it would make more sense to go back to our hometown where we were both from and our families were from, and raise our boys for 10 years. And then backwards, where I'll go wherever you want to go in the world, I'll follow you wherever you want to go. But let's give our boys 10 years. Yeah. Be grandparents. And that's how I ended up at EverBank. And we did that. And EverBank allowed me to commute back and forth to our corporate headquarters in New Jersey. And then I was on the road more so, traveling our customer base across the country nationally, which led me to this position, which we were actually in year 8 mark of the 10-year plan. And this opportunity presented itself here at UniFi. And what attracted me to this opportunity was the foundation of the culture and the history of the business starting in 1978. And then the Bank of Ann Arbor, who's our parent, in terms of, I looked into their culture and their leadership and their success and what drove them. And, then you look at Ann Arbor, Michigan as an area, the University of Michigan is here. And we just made a decision that it was a great opportunity for us to take as a family, because anytime you move for a career, the family has to support you if you want to be successful in doing that. And the greatest compliment that I ever received was probably 3 years after the move. We were out to dinner with my 2 boys and Mary and my wife, and both boys said to me at dinner, they wish we would have moved to Ann Arbor a long time ago. So that just made me feel incredible that it was the right move, and we feel this is home now for us.
Okay, well, we'll get on to UniFi in due course. So you mentioned about EverBank. So you were the vice president at EverBank, and I read somewhere that you had a growth of 312%. That's just immense. That's amazing. Tell me how you managed to have such incredible growth. Did you hear me? I said you became vice president of EverBank, which had a growth of 312%. That's just incredible. That's amazing. How did you manage to get that amount of growth?
I was darn lucky. Actually, that was right after the Great Recession, and that was in the time frame of 2010 and 2011. Actually, that was 2011 and 2012, and we pivoted the direction at EverBank in terms of what we were doing in our customer base, and the timing was good, and it was a lot of the timing was very similar to when we come out of this. The people who are proactive and get out there and start trying to build their business back again are going to be the first people to be able to have the fruits of their hard work pay off. Yeah. So when we came out of that, I remember flying to Atlanta to meet with a particular partner that I worked with at Key. And I remember when I went and met with the company, I said, I'm not sure what product I'm going to have for you. I'm not sure what we're going to look like. I'm not sure, quite honestly, what we're going to be able to do to help you. Yeah. But I know we're going to do something, and I know we're going to be able to be valuable for you. And you're basing that off of our personal relationship. So I did that with all my relationships that I had over the years. I didn't have a product to sell. And quite honestly, we just went through a name change to EverBank. So we didn't even have brand awareness with the name. And then it was just really Danielle Patty, who's my director of who's our director of operations here now today with me at UniFi, was our director of operations at EverBank. We've been together 13 years. And other than my wife, she's the greatest win I've ever had for a female saying yes to me. And matter of fact, when she said yes to moving here to Ann Arbor, I think Marianne was happier than I was, because she knew that Danielle was going to take so much off of pressure and stress off of me from an operating perspective. And like anything, after you've been through it once, Mark, and go through it again and again, you learn every time you go through that. So when Danielle and I grew that business at EverBank 303%, and then we came here, and when I arrived here, we grew this business from 13 million to now it's 170 million, just using the same practices that we used before. And at the end of the day, it's just about people. It's about doing the right.
Interesting. Really interesting you say that, because I recently was talking to someone, and they were saying how basically all of their business was based on networking. Well, not networking in that sense, but networking, relationship building, speaking to people, building that rapport, and that's the way to grow a business. This what you sometimes hear from a lot of the social media influencers, which is all about hustle and grind, and you need to work the hardest. You have to work hard, like, obviously, but actually the technique or the skill or the development of actually relationship building is more of a long-standing business technique, which is sometimes overlooked. Would you agree?
I completely agree. And I used to use the word grind and hustle and work ethic, but work ethic is still a good word. But those other words, I'm not so sure they're relevant anymore. And what I mean by that is it's about working smart. It's doing a high value activity to have a high return, and doing those type of activities. I also firmly believe that building a brand, your own personal brand, is very critical, is very important to you as a person. And especially, I love the topic of being an entrepreneur. You love the topic of being an entrepreneur. And part of building that brand of yourself is building that brand out, because so many people are going to Google you. So many people are going to try and find out information about you before you even come and meet with them.
Yeah.
So but it takes work. A good LinkedIn profile. Yeah. You don't have to be on every platform, but you should be on one or two. Yeah. If it's LinkedIn, you should be writing some content about what you do, about relevant topics, not just putting out marketing materials. And then again, it goes back to doing the right thing and showing people value. Yeah. And our sales team people here at UniFi or anywhere else, there's a big difference between, as I say, being a salesperson and a business person. A salesperson is just trying to make a sale, one-time event, and move on. A business person is trying to solve problems and help that company solutions. And there's a lot of times we'll have a business meeting with a potential prospect or potential customer, and I'll say, I don't have anything for you, and I don't want to waste your time in try and build something or offer you something that we can't be. A salesperson doesn't do that. A salesperson is going to try and just jam something through the process.
So a lot of salespeople are based on numbers. So you make 100 calls, you get 50 refusals, you get 25 people might speak to you, you get 10 people might buy. And I understand that process, and I sort of respect that for people's persistence to do that. But something I read and studied a little bit about maybe 4 or 5 years ago was consultative sales. And that, for me, it just resonated with me. One of my ambitions is to maybe do a course on consultative sales, because I think it's so important for people to build relationships, to not just hard sell, work with people on the long term and try and develop relationships and products which suit and add value to their clients. So yeah, I'm a complete convert to, we call it in the UK consultative sales. I'm not sure if that translates to the US, but essentially it's, instead of hard selling, you're building your brand, you're building the company's brand, you're building successful relationships. So yeah, for me, it's a lot more, it's a better way of conducting business.
Well, here in the States, and I'm not so sure if this is true or not, but sometimes consultative selling has a negative connotation to it, where it's just a consultant and you're coming in consulting and you're not held accountable to results. That's why I use the word of coaching, because I rather coach people than be a consultant. A consultant, I come in, I tell you what to do. A coach is going to give you give you application and philosophy to make your business better. But I completely agree. We've never measured at UniFi, nor have I ever measured, and I would never work in an environment like this where I'm measured on the amount of calls, the amount of meetings I have to make. It's about results. And at the end of the day, if I'm achieving my results, however I get there, that's what's most important. It's not about how many times I make the phone calls. It's not about how many phone calls I make. It's not about how many emails I send. I know, or the salesperson should know, where they spend their time. Now, it becomes a discussion if they're not achieving certain KPIs or certain goals of where they're spending their time, or what are they doing? Are they spending their time on the right activities? But it's never, you need to make 100 calls and you're going to be successful. At the end of the day, to catch the fish, you got to throw your worm into the water. And if you're not throwing the worm into the water, you're not going to catch anything. But I'd rather cast 5 times and catch 3 fish than cast 100 times and catch the same 3 fish.
Yeah.
So working harder than harder, but still you have to have the work ethic and discipline to do the right activities. And we could talk about sales process all day long in terms of having the right filters and avatar of who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big proponent, a big fan of working with opportunities that are going to be game changers for you. And our younger salespeople in our company, I always reference and talk about that, where, you know, if they have a certain opportunity, I'll say, this is a game changer. If we win this, this is going to be the next level of your career. And I can point back to my whole career and point at a certain relationship that that was a stepping stone for me to where I sit today.
100%. So you've been a coach, a speaker, a trainer, which was part of Michael Bert's philosophy of person of interest. So tell me a little bit, I don't know Michael Bert, tell me a little bit about him and the philosophy.
Yeah, so I learned of Coach Bert 5 years ago, online. And Coach Bert is a former high school championship basketball coach that made a decision that he wanted to get into business coaching, and he has multiple products. But what I found with Coach Bert, what I like, is that he broke it down to real simple steps and processes. And a person of interest is someone in the sales world that you want to do business with. You're attracting people versus chasing people. And become a person of interest, you have to do certain things and be likable and be someone that is attracted to you. We all know, we go to an event, or when we used to go to an event before these unfortunate times, you could be drawn to a certain person because they found them interesting. And typically a person of interest a lot of times takes more interest in the person I'm talking to, or you're talking to, than they am themselves. It's never anyone that's talking strictly about themselves, but they're learning about people. They have life experiences. They have a certain aura about themselves. But there is a process that Coach Bert has built. I wrote a book. It's teachable in companies and corporations. And it doesn't matter if you're in sales or if you're in operations, if you're in accounting. If you want to be a person of interest, there's certain things that you can do to be able to become a person of interest. And it's a really easy process, but you have to put in that time and understand the roadmap to do that. And again, Coach Bert, as a matter of fact, I was mentioning I'm doing a Zoom call this afternoon with Coach Bert on entrepreneurship in these uncertain times, and how business owners can use that mindset within their companies, and or if someone's unemployed looking for work, how someone can take on that mindset of being an entrepreneur when they go back out to the job market into the marketplace. But Coach Bert, you can look him up online. Just Google Coach Bert, and you'll see he has several books, a lot of online training. He's from right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, so he's a good old Southern boy. And what attracted me to Coach, quite honestly, is probably the sports background. He leverages his experience of coaching into business. And his saying is he believes everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter where you are in your facet of life, you should have a coach. Tiger Woods, greatest golfer of all time, has a swing coach. Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is, but you always should have a coach helping you to become a better version of yourself. And in today's world, too, it's so easy. With the power of YouTube, yeah, you can learn anything. You can learn any hobby, any experience, anything with the power of YouTube that our parents never had that opportunity. They'd have to go buy a book. I can now go to YouTube, Google something, and 10 minutes later have a full, a base knowledge of something.
Oh, so I can take this in so many different directions. I've got sort of three trail of thoughts that I've got about what you've just said there. I'm going to go with one of them and we'll move to the other one. So what's most important for you to be a coach in business? What for you sort of means the most to being an effective coach in business, which might be different to sport, but there are definitely parallels as well.
What's most important to me is that the person, the student that I'm working with wants to learn. I'm just not out looking to coach business owners or work with business owners just for the sake of doing that. They have to be like-minded. They have to have an understanding where they want to get to, and then they're willing. They have to be willing to want to put in the time and effort. And the difference between my type of coaching and other coaching is I coach from life application. I'm going to take best practices or current practices that I've used over my career from big businesses and small businesses and implement into their business to help them. And so many business owners before this event, a lot of them were what I call, in living hell. They owned a business. I have a saying, and this saying is not mine. I just like it. You can't see the label from the inside the jar. Well, they're inside the jar. Yeah. They don't see the label, and they need someone to come in as a coach or consultant and help them where they feel they need to be. And 9 out of 10 times it's about sales. It's about growing revenues. It's about identifying the perfect customer, because every business needs sales. That's the oxygen for every single business. And then after we do that, we can look at processes, we can look at efficiencies, and then look at the culture of the team. So it's more than just one thing, it's several things. But the biggest thing is that they want to have the right reason to work with me. It's not that I need more and more customers. It's a defined reason.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple of times about mentors and coaches that you've had. So have you had one business mentor or coach, or have you had multiple ones depending on what your requirements for at that time?
Yeah, great question. Multiple ones. You should never have one, because you're going to go through different, I call them chapters in your life, and as well as different chapters in your life. I was on a call last week in terms of work-life balance, and I think from this event, with COVID-19, I've been a firm believer of this forever. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's work-life integration, and so many people need to have that life-work integration. I think it'd be more powerful if people thought of it like that. So with that being said, I have a coach that would help me with leadership and sales. I have a coach that helps me for diet and working out, right? Exercise coach that I have a mental coach that works with me, but there's different chapters that I leverage these people. And back to YouTube, it's such a powerful tool. And podcasts, you can have different people influence you and put thoughts into you, but you have to want to be that sponge. You have to want to be that life learner to take that information. If you're just going to watch Netflix or binge watch shows, that's okay, but don't expect to have that next level.
Exactly.
By doing.
I've talked about this a few times on my podcast, and the role of podcasts and YouTube are a real good starting point for people to understand what these mentors, coaches can add to you. So just on the YouTube podcast sort of realm. So I said to a friend of mine, we were having a chat. He's started a business relatively recently, like literally, I think it was like March this year. He left his corporate role and went and started a business, which unfortunately wasn't the greatest move short term, but I think it will work out long term. And we were talking about finance. So they develop software for finance, and he was saying, well, we've worked in this particular area for some of them, I think about 12 years. He was about 6-7 years. And he's like, well, this is what we sell. I'm like, well, you got to think about from a wider perspective. You're going to look to get new clients. You might have to extend your breadth of your knowledge on this particular part of finance. And he was like, but how do I do that? And I just sat there thinking to myself, right, let's just be sensible about this. You now have YouTube, you now have podcasts where you can literally learn a tool, a technique, a tactic, a new subject area so fast. And he was astonished. He'd never thought of YouTube as a education platform. He'd only thought of it as a sort of media / entertainment platform. And I was astonished by that. He's in his early 30s, and I would have thought, and so that brings me on to the point of the question I asked about YouTube. And so what do you think the role of YouTube or podcasts are for people who want to be coached, people who want to build their knowledge and experience up?
There you go.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so we'll edit all of this out. I'll just to make a point where it was. So my question was, I was talking to a colleague of mine who was saying about a particular.
No, I heard.
Oh, okay, fine.
That, yeah, the YouTube and now help me understand. He didn't think of YouTube.
He didn't YouTube as a platform for education. He thought it was just an entertainment platform.
So what I do is, if I want to learn something new, say if I want to learn I want to learn a new golf swing per se. Okay, I'll learn how to do something. I go to YouTube or Google it, look at several people that do videos. Then someone's going to resonate with you, right? Personally, they're going to either talk similar to you, or use words or their mannerisms, and you're going to be drawn to them, person of interest. Yeah. Then at that point, I'm going to try and learn more about them. And typically they have probably a website and they have information. And then you make a decision, and they can become your coach, that you can learn from them. But YouTube is more not, of course, there's a lot of things on YouTube in regards to, comedies and things of that nature. But I think it's probably the most valuable tool around education. And people are using it more and more and more. I mean, my wife uses it to fix our dishwasher, to fix this. If anyone says, I don't know how to do something, shame on them. It's unbelievable the amount of information that you can get on YouTube.
Yeah, I would agree totally. So let's move on to UniFi Equipment Finance Inc. So you're now president and CEO of it. So what's your day-to-day job actually like as president and CEO?
So pre-COVID, primarily it was running sales, and then overseeing our leadership team in terms of operations, credit portfolio, and accounting. Day to day, really there was no 2 days alike, and that's what I loved about it. Everything from customer visits to strategy, it really depends on where we were in the time of year. Where the fall's more focused on budgeting and forecasting and policy writing. The beginning of the year is more focused on, growth of business and where you're going to achieve that growth. But what I enjoy most is really a couple things. One, watching people become better at who they are within the organization. Two, working with our customers, our business people that are selling equipment. And three, working with, customers that use us to finance the equipment. And, the satisfaction or gratification that comes from that. I give you an example of that is I went to dinner late last year with a couple that have been in business 15 years. They took their 401k, rolled it into this business, and we started financing some vans for them. And they were never able to have vans financed for them previously, and they always had to use their own cash. So when we came along, we're able to finance those for them. They, at dinner, made the comment to me that we've changed their lives because they can go buy new vans, their employees are happier, and they saw their revenue grow tremendously. Yeah. When you can influence someone's life like that in terms of, because what we do, we think we're just doing financing, right? You never see the end result of it and how you affect people's lives. Yeah. And I brought that back to the organization and immediately said, this is why, this is our why. This is what we do on a daily basis. And a lot of times we get caught up in the little things that drag us down, but we influence this couple, their 6 children, and their business and their community by doing what we take for granted on a daily basis. Yeah. That's what I love doing more than anything else. And then I love the strategy piece. I love, taking time to look back and working on the business and not in the business in terms of, and that's something that I have to work on a lot because I am a roll up your sleeves type of guy. I get involved in probably too much. My managers would tell you that. But in the same respect, I absolutely love this business. I love what we do. I love the members of the team. And I look forward to when we come out of this COVID-19, getting back out and seeing customers and helping them grow their business again. But UniFi has been an incredible journey for me. I've been here 7 years. I'm the second CEO president of the company, which is very humbling to think of a 40-year-old company only had 2 CEOs. I'm very humbled by a lot of our team members have been with the company 30 plus years and they're still here. And they went through a lot of change when I first arrived. It's like any business, you have your certain ways of doing things. And then someone new comes in, it's like, okay, there's a lot of uncertainty and they stuck it out. They're patient and they went through the growth because we went from, in essence, 12 million to 170 million fairly quick.
Wow. Okay.
So, but we're a small, nimble, mighty group, and it's I mentioned this earlier. You're as good as your the team members, the people in the company. And I always use the metaphor that every football team has the same playbook, right, or very similar playbook. The difference is the players. Yeah. So what we do on a daily basis is everyone knows how to do financing. It's the people who execute and work with each other and make our customers feel, and that's what's more important. And that starts with me, ensuring that that I'm spending my time on the right things, and then accountability is the other thing. I firmly believe in peer accountability. I firmly believe in accountability up, accountability sideways, accountability down. And I tell my team, if I'm doing something incorrectly, tell me. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And they know I'm going to hold them accountable. And if I do something out of bounds, just bring it to my attention, because I want to continue, just like everyone should want to continue, to become a better version of themselves.
Absolutely. So what strategic approach do you have to innovate in technology in your industry, but also have dramatic revenue growth?
So our industry is very antiquated. And what I mean by that is our industry is an old industry. I'm probably one of the youngest, if not youngest, CEOs in our industry as a whole. And again, that's not negative or anything. It's just a matter of fact. And I'm a firm believer in what we call digital journey for our customers, because everyone, just like we're doing this on our phones or computers, that's how people want to transact business nowadays. Yeah. So we developed a product called Boost, which is a complete digital journey where someone can take a credit application all the way to signing their contracts, all the way to receiving their monthly invoices without a paper. And we were one of the first ones in the country to do that. And we still have a lot of people that push back on that in terms of our dealers that have done business the old-fashioned way for years and years and years. Yeah. And in UniFi, there's whiteboards everywhere. I'm a firm believer in having whiteboards everywhere because I'm a visual person. Yeah. And my team kind of makes fun of me where, oh, here he goes, he's getting a marker and start drawing things out. And I did an exercise one day because Danielle was saying, RJ, we can't do that because the vendor, our dealer, won't want us to do this. I said, okay, let's walk through the way that we conduct business today. And I whiteboarded it out. And I said, there's 35 steps here. If we did this exercise and shown them of how we're doing it, and that's probably what drives me, is always looking for ways to improve. And that's just the way I'm wired. If I look at something, and I always say, I'm not saying it's wrong. It could be perfect, but I'm just going to peel away the layers of the onion real quick and let's take a peek at it. And it's not questioning you. It's not questioning why you're doing it. It's just who I am. And maybe we'll make some changes or maybe we won't. And if you stop doing that at any time as a person and or in a business or a business owner, it's probably time for you to move on and do something else because you've lost that passion to innovate. Especially now after COVID-19, the businesses who have pivoted, the businesses who have strategically thought about what they're going to look like, or at least have some type of idea what they're going to look like because we're still not sure. Yeah. Those are the businesses that will be left behind. Yeah. And there's so many businesses here in the States that's happened to that have been, my biggest fear, my biggest scare is Amazon and financing. Right. That should be everyone's fear. And if you become complacent, you're going to be like Blockbuster, or you're going to be Kodak. You're going to be one of those companies that are going to be left behind because you didn't want to take the chance to innovate. And that's why I believe in entrepreneurship so much, because those are the folks with that mindset like yourself in the business that are always looking for ways to improve, innovate. And it doesn't always have to be innovation to the degree of you're innovating something. But if you're making a process or a product or a different product within the confines of the business, making it better, that's really the end game for any entrepreneur.
So we've talked about entrepreneur a couple of times on this conversation. So can you give me a definition of what it means to you?
What it means to me is someone that has an entrepreneur mindset that works within the confines of the business. So, for example, I'm going to use both terms here, and it confuses people sometimes. Okay. Okay. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur. My uncles were entrepreneurs. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. My grandfather. I come from a heritage of entrepreneurs. Yeah. I happen to fall into corporate America. So I have the same mindset, but I work within the confines of corporate America to have this mindset. Yeah. So I didn't take any risk. I didn't take I didn't have to write a check. I worked within the structure of a company, but I had the mindset like it was my own business. I owned it. Mm. So if I wanted to do something, I owned it. I had to be extremely resourceful within the company. So it's that mindset where that entrepreneur finds an issue and then they want to exploit it and fix something, build a business, but they have to take all that risk, take that big willing risk. As an entrepreneur, I'm not taking the risk. I'm going to work within the company to make that company better.
I would challenge you slightly, only on one point, because I totally agree with what you've said, is that you're not taking a risk. I actually think within the realms of corporate America, you are actually taking a risk by using that approach. You're not financially taking the risk, but equally challenging people and trying to think outside the box and come up with ideas in corporate America and in corporate in UK is actually a risk in itself.
I would agree with that. There is, but I call that a calculated risk versus an entrepreneur. For example, someone that right now here in the States or before COVID-19, it was the cool thing to say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting my business. Well, what does that really mean? A lot of times it means you're broke and probably living with your parents still, or you're trying to figure out what you want to do, right? So that was the cool phrase. And I started talking about really the cool thing should be you want to become an entrepreneur, has that mindset if you truly want to be an entrepreneur, but within corporate America. And you're right, there is risk associated with it because you're going to stick your neck out and you're going to push people out of their comfort zones. You're going to do things that are going to rub people the wrong way. That's why I firmly believe it's so important that an entrepreneur believes in the mission and the culture of the company before they join it to become an entrepreneur. Because if you don't believe in the mission and the culture of that company, you're going to go and not be successful. Because you have to stay within the confines of that company as an entrepreneur. Thinking outside the box. Well, you have to stay inside the box at UniFi, but bring ideas. And we foster that environment. And I can give you an example of that. We had a gentleman who came to me 4 years ago and said, RJ, we do not have a avenue for our customers to make a payment online.
Right.
I said, well, we don't have an IT, there's nothing in the budget for that. And I don't even know where to begin. He said, can I take and run with it and do some research? I said, you firmly believe that our customers will use that if it's valuable? He said, I firmly believe that. So he ran with it. He built it. He ruffled a lot of feathers. IT people, the provider. I quite honestly, in my mind, didn't think that people would use it. Come to find out now, 65% of our payments are processed through that.
Right.
And he did it. So he found a solution within our company to make us better that wasn't part of his job description. He wasn't compensated anymore. He had to take that risk, right, to upset people. But he learned from it too. That's the other beautiful thing of being an entrepreneur. If you do things more than just your job description and you're willing to push yourself, you're going to learn new things that you can take with you forever and ever to wherever your career leads.
So we've talked a couple of things about ideas. So what's your theory on ideas? Is it as many as you can? Is it having ideas on your own and then sort of tailoring them for your corporate environment? Is it just worth throwing ideas out? Because you said you might ruffle people's feathers. What is your strategy on you having ideas or other people in your team having ideas within your business?
I would say it's all the above, because it starts at the senior leadership or the business owner management level in terms of having that mindset. And if people understand, probably the term entrepreneur is not used as much as it should be, but if you foster the opportunity for people to bring you ideas, good, bad, or indifferent, in an open environment, you don't have to have like Google where they have an innovation lab or, larger companies. I'm working with smaller companies. you know, that the SMBs of the world, that what we call here in the United States.
Yeah.
So they don't have the resources to have an innovation lab. But as a business owner, if you foster that there's no bad idea, every idea is good, but remember, it has to stay within the confines of what we're doing. An example of that is if you're a great fish and chips bar, don't come to me and say we should start making pizzas, right?
Yeah.
Stay within who we are and look at ways to innovate within our fish and chips. Maybe we can buy fresher fish from somewhere. Maybe our process, is there a challenge somewhere? Look within the confines of the business to make those fixes.
So it's interesting because so one of the guys that sort of I've been interested on podcasts is someone in the US, in New York, called James Altucher. Do you know James Altucher? So James has had, he's sort of been successful and failed probably 3 or 4 times, and he's now on his sort of 4th approach to business, and he sort of has learned what the way to do it. But he talks about writing down 5 to 10 ideas about anything: a company, a person, a brand, a technology, your family, friends. 10 ideas about how you could improve their business, their life, whatever it is. And what he says is, it's a muscle that needs to be exercised, just like your brain, just like your muscles on your arms or your legs. And ideas are a muscle which needs to be trained and honed. And you might have 10 awful ideas one day, but the next day you might have 9 awful ideas, but 1 very, very, very good idea. Would you agree that it's a muscle?
I completely agree with that. And I mentioned earlier, part of my role here is thinking strategically and working on the business and not in the business. And that's where I foster those type of thoughts for myself personally.
Right.
So as I sit down and say, I firmly believe in the concept of the muscle. The challenge with that is, if I sat down every single day and tried to write down 10 things or identify 10 things, I'd be going in too many different directions.
Yeah.
So we do what we call the big 3, or rocks. We call those rocks, and each manager has their major rock. Yeah. And that's a high value thing or activity that is going to give a great return for the business. And it's not in the normal scope of your business or of your job responsibilities or duties. So we call them rocks. We try and do 3 in the company each quarter, because it can become too much, where if there's 10 or 12. But again, I want to go back, Mark, to it's the culture within the company that everyone is always looking for ways to improve, or looking for ways to give. We call it the customer journey. Yeah. Is this a customer experience? And if they hear me say that all the time, it's about the customer journey. It's about the customer experience, about how we treat our customer. And if everyone knows that that's the way we're thinking, then they're going to look for ways to improve on that. And sometimes there's nowhere to improve it. And then maybe there's a revenue opportunity. And then if you're talking about revenue, okay, let's talk about that. But I firmly believe it is a muscle. I firmly believe in that, and you should have dedicated time set up for that. And I don't know if it's, I don't have any, judgment if it should be daily, monthly, quarterly, but there should be time for every business owner as well as yourself. So let's break this down to a personal perspective. We were talking about brand and social media and content. Yeah. I use Saturday mornings with a cup of coffee for my content creation, for my social media updating. Every Saturday morning, it becomes now a habit for me, just like brushing my teeth. Saturday morning, I get up, I develop my content, I update any social media. I probably reached out to you and communicated to you. So I built that muscle where I'm not doing this, but I'm working on the brand. I'm working on content. I'm working on things that are valuable for customers. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think I agree from an entrepreneurial point of view, the strategic time is the key or the critical time to come up with ideas, because that's when you're going to pivot, change course of the business, or slightly add a revenue stream which you'd not thought of. Yeah, James Altucher's approach is a little bit extreme, but he comes from the entrepreneurial, where he's looking and testing as he goes on multiple projects, which I think is a little bit sometimes unmanageable.
Well, he has that think big mindset. You know, he has that Elon Musk mindset. He has that, you know, Mark Cuban type of mindset, where most business owners don't have that mindset. Yeah. They're just looking for incremental ways to improve their business and haven't thought about it the right kind of way to be able to do that.
So we're coming to the end of the conversation. I've got 5 questions for you, but before we go, I'm gonna slightly switch tack, because what I was going to ask you earlier on, but we never got to, was about your hockey level coaching. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you get into it? What sort of level do you coach now? Do you still coach now?
I do not coach now. So I played hockey growing up. Never played to the level of my 2 boys where they've played. One played collegiate, and the second one will be heading off this fall to play collegiate level. I only played in high school and played growing up. Matter of fact, I wasn't going to get into coaching my boys, and it just kind of happened, like everything, right, by coincidence. And anything I do, I got into it, and of course loved it, enjoyed it. And then in USA Hockey, there's certain classes that you have to take to have certain levels. And level 5 is the highest, which I wanted to do. I wanted to achieve my level 5, which is a weekend long, and you have to write a dissertation and things of that nature. I never did that, but I have a level 4. And what that means is that I can coach at any level across in the United States, because you have to have that certification, and it's good forever. It's good for my life. Yeah. I haven't coached probably in 8 years or so. Now, the beautiful thing about this is my oldest son now is coaching. He just completed his 2nd year of high school coaching as an assistant coach. So I'm able to go watch him coach. I watch my dad coach. So it's kind of just in our blood. I love going to a hockey game and watching my boys play, because they know that I'm sitting there watching. I enjoy watching the coaches more than I watch the game. I love watching the strategy piece of it. I love watching the coach interact with the players. I like the hockey, but I love the coaching piece of it. I'll probably end up back in coaching someday, somehow, maybe as an old gray hair assistant on someone's, you know, the guy with the wisdom on the bench. Especially here in Ann Arbor, there's a lot of hockey everywhere, and you know, it's a way to give back to the sport that's been so good to my family.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got 5 quick fire questions, but they don't need a quick fire answer, so don't feel any pressure on that. First question is, what's the best decision that you made?
Going into the Air Force.
And why was that? The discipline?
Foundation and discipline that I needed to have as a 20-year-old to learn what I'm capable of doing in the right environment. And you know, just taught me, again, discipline and leadership, and you know, just the foundation that helped me get to where I am today.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice I was given was from my dad, and I was probably, I don't know, mid-20s or so, and it wasn't so much advice. It was, did you look at what's the worst case scenario? Right. And I said no, and he said, well, walk through the worst case scenario. And he said, that's the worst case scenario. Why aren't you moving forward? So we even do this with my boys, the old T and pros and cons, and you know, let's weigh it against each other. And it's the old-fashioned way of making big decisions, or making decisions. And you can use it in any example, from a work perspective, career perspective, personal perspective, because every decision, people forget that every decision that you make has ramifications long-term. And I sit here today from decisions that I made 15 and 20 years ago, not what I made yesterday. So every single, decision, and my dad just taught me, did you break down? It's real easy, pros and cons, and then take that calculated risk to move forward.
Awesome. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I would, that's a tough one. I would hate to say just one. There's been a lot.
Name a few. It's fun.
Yeah, I would say that Adam Warner is definitely one. He's the CEO, president at Key Equipment Finance. He gave me my first opportunity into, actually second opportunity into leadership, but for the director of sales for that $100 million business. I didn't have the experience to be running a $100 million business. I was in way over my head, but he knew that I would learn and work hard and make great decisions, and that's what he needed. And he's still to this day is a mentor of mine. I could email him a question or ask him for help, and he'd be there for me. I would say another mentor was my dad, of course. He unfortunately passed away very young. He passed away when I was 30 and he was 61. So I feel very blessed that I got that time with him, to learn from him. And then I would say my father-in-law is another mentor for me. He passed away last May, but he taught me how to be a genuine, caring person. He was a blue-collar Italian that just was humbled and cared about people. And it wasn't about racing. It wasn't about getting to the next step. It wasn't about, always working hard. It was about family and taking time and slowing down and having meaningful conversations. And he influenced me tremendously, over the 28 years that I knew him. So again, I mentors from different aspects of life to help me.
Awesome. Do you have any regrets?
No, the only regret I have is I probably didn't take more risk earlier on, if that makes sense. I'm very conservative by nature, but I have no regrets. I've been blessed more than I ever deserve. Family-wise, career-wise, the people I've been blessed to work with that have come into my life. I'm to be doing what I'm doing here today. I've no regrets. No, I don't have any at all.
Awesome. What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of today is my two boys, my two young men.
How old are they?
They're 26 and 21. Okay. And just how they're good people, good for society, take care of people, good work ethic, good athletes, good in the classroom. That's what I'm most proud about. And especially I hear about out right now here, especially now where, yesterday was Mother's Day, and how I see them just treat their mother and take care of their mother and just be respectful. And what's great is, they're good, excellent golfers. So they're, a lot of times my buddies are texting them to go golfing because they're better than me. And, when you have an adult saying, hey, to a younger gentleman, do you want to go golfing? I think that's something to be proud of, that, these guys want to hang out with my kids.
Yeah. Brilliant. So RJ, thank you very much for this interview. It's been really, really fascinating and really interesting to talk about wide range of subjects. It's been fantastic. So where can people find you? You were talking about your own brand or your business brand.
Sure. Well, first I want to thank you. I appreciate you setting this up, and I've enjoyed our conversation together. You could find me. My website is RJ Grimshaw, RJGRIMSHAW.com, or you could just Google me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. But my website has information in regards to entrepreneurship, sales coaching. You can sign up there for a white paper on how to become an entrepreneur and from a mindset perspective. But you can reach out to me. There's a contact page. I love getting emails, and if you have any type of questions, I'm here to help and love networking and talking with people from across the world.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, RJ. I appreciate your time, and we'll speak again soon.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.